It's well established that physical activity is one of the most important things that we can do to improve our health. But did you know that some activities are way better than others to help us live longer? Like a lot longer? And there's one that's gaining in popularity that is super easy to start at any age. Let's see what the studies show. This 2022 article, published in the Journal of the American Medical Association Open Network, unveiled the results of a large, long-term health study with 272,550 participants ranging in age from 59 to 82 who responded to questionnaires about their weekly involvement in 7 different physical activities. These were assigned different MET values based on intensity. A MET, or metabolic equivalent task, is a measure of energy expenditure, with 1 MET equating to the energy that we use while sitting at rest. So for an activity like walking for exercise, which was 4.3 METs in this study, our oxygen consumption, or energy utilization, is 4.3 times our resting state. In addition to walking for exercise, the other activities measured in the study were swimming, jogging/running, cycling, aerobic exercise, racket sports, which included tennis, squash, and racquetball, and golf. The MET values were multiplied by the participants' reported duration of each activity to estimate MET hours per week, which were grouped according to 5 different levels: inactive, moderately active, active, highly active, and very highly active. These categories correspond with the 2018 Physical Activity Guidelines for Americans, which recommend 7.5 to 15 METs of moderate intensity physical activity per week. This is comparable to 150 to 300 minutes of moderate exercise, which is why we often hear that we should aim for at least 30 minutes of exercise 5 days per week. The survey respondents were followed through December 2019 with a mean follow-up of 12.4 years from the initial survey. In that time frame, 118,153 of the participants died, which was 43%. Over 38,000 deaths were due to cardiovascular disease. After adjusting for a number of variables, the researchers found that the individuals in the moderately active group, so those that did 0.1 to 7.5 MET hours per week through any combination of the 7 activities, had 5% lower all-cause mortality risk than those who were inactive. For those in the active group, so 7.5 to 15 MET hours per week, the risk reduction was 13%. And when analyzing for the specific activities, the greatest reduction in all-cause mortality was from, are you ready for it, racket sports, with a 16% risk reduction, trailed closely by running at 15% and walking for exercise at 9%. Racket sports had an amazing 27% decreased mortality risk from cardiovascular disease compared to only 8% for running and 11% for walking. The authors theorize that the benefit from racket sports is due to the specific physiological demands and adaptations required by these sports. They involve hand-eye coordination with synchronized action engaging many muscle groups, as well as having intermittent bursts of sprinting and high intensity. But if we consider the findings from this article, there may be an entirely different reason why racket sport athletes live longer. This is a study of 8,577 Danes ranging in age from 20 to 93 who were followed for 25 years after completing similar questionnaires about their involvement in physical activities that included tennis, badminton, soccer, jogging, cycling, swimming, and health club workouts like using a treadmill, elliptical trainer, or weight training. The researchers reported the data in a slightly different way, describing the results in terms of life expectancy gains rather than reduction in mortality risk. Over the 25-year follow-up, there were 4,448 deaths. And again, after adjusting for multiple variables, the researchers found that the life expectancy gains were health club workouts, 1.5 years, jogging, 3.2 years, swimming, 3.4 years, cycling, 3.7 years, playing soccer, 4.7 years, badminton, 6.2 years, and tennis, a whopping 9.7 years. Tennis players lived almost a decade longer than those who were sedentary. Like the previous study, the authors speculate that the improvements from tennis, badminton, and soccer may have been related to the specific demands of these sports, since they have periods of high intensity, they use large muscle groups, and full-body movements. But the researchers also noticed that these sports require 2 or more people to play together, in contrast to less interactive physical activities like jogging, swimming, and cycling. Even though less physically strenuous than some of the other activities, the authors speculate that the unexpected increases in lifespan from doubles tennis and badminton were due to this inherently social nature of these sports. And this correlates with other research showing that social isolation is one of the strongest predictors of decreased life expectancy. On the other hand, having social support and a sense of group belonging is associated with substantial improvements in long-term health. So these two studies are pretty convincing that racket sports, and tennis in particular, can increase our lifespan. But as someone who started playing tennis when I was 9 years old, I can attest that it can be a pretty frustrating sport and challenging to learn, especially if you're trying to start when you're a little older. One great alternative that has a much lower barrier to entry in terms of equipment, court costs, and ease of learning, and it's taking America by storm, is pickleball. And before you poo-poo it because of the ridiculous name, hear me out. I was one of those arrogant former tennis players who refused to try pickleball for a long time, thinking it looked a little silly and was primarily a sport for old people. But participation has absolutely exploded in the US, growing by 223.5% since 2021. And last year alone, 13.6 million people played pickleball, and the data showed that the largest age bracket, comprising almost 29% of players, is between the ages of 18 and 34, surpassing us 55-plus oldsters for the first time. There is a very simple reason for this astronomical growth. Pickleball is fun, like crazy fun, addictive fun. You don't have to have racket sport or any sport experience at all to start. It's offered at most YMCAs and community centers throughout the country, and some even rent paddles, so it'll cost you essentially nothing. I can still hear the doubters out there saying, it's not a real sport. Do you have any proof that it's actually beneficial? Well, yes, I do. This study showed that after a 6-week intervention playing 1 hour per day, a group of 65-year-old subjects had statistically significant decreases in blood pressure, improvements in their lipid profile, and increased cardiorespiratory fitness measured by VO2 max. Their bump in VO2 max was approximately 1 MET, and this amount has been shown in other studies to correlate with a 12% reduction in all-cause mortality and 18% lower risk of death from cardiovascular disease. This study, using accelerometers and fitness trackers, showed that 72% of active doubles play in a group averaging 63 years old fell in the moderate to vigorous heart rate zone. Based on this intensity level, the authors conclude that 4.5 hours per week of pickleball will effectively meet the minimum for the U.S. physical activity guidelines. And the majority of subjects in the study were already playing anywhere between 5 to 11 hours per week. Most importantly, pickleball is an incredibly social sport. It's inclusive, it's been shown to be intergenerational, create social bonds, it increases well-being, a sense of community, and overall happiness. With the key ingredients of physiological benefits and social connection, there's no doubt that once pickleball is incorporated into similar long-term studies, it will slot in as an activity that improves longevity on par with a few of these others. Even if you're never inclined to pick up a paddle, or you don't have time or energy to meet the 7.5 to 15 Met-hour per week recommendations, the takeaway from today is that any amount of movement is beneficial. At the lowest activity level, 0.1 to 7.5 Met-hours per week, every single pursuit reduced the risk of cardiovascular disease and all-cause mortality. So leave me a comment below if there's something that you found that gets you moving and has also helped you find community. Being physically active has a huge positive impact on longevity, but there's something that you need to understand first that is as important of a factor in the aging process. You'll want to check out this video to find out more. I wish you well, and I'll see you soon.